I'm going to talk about the work that has been done at IIT Madras. It's a purely computational perspective and a listener's perspective from which we have started. So please bear with us for mistakes and please correct us. I'm going to do a little bit of MIR and what Carnatic music, what is it that we expect. In the context of Carnatic music, unlike Hindustani music, a Carnatic music concert is very important. A Carnatic music concert is a story as far as the way I look at it from a listener's perspective. Go through some preliminaries. And the fundamental concept, I think Javi already talked about this, tonic, and we have kind of done parallel work on tonic and some very interesting results where we can find tonic even without using machine learning. And as you've been hearing today, most of the things about Indian music are the motifs, and we will look at gamakas in Carnatic music. Then we come up with what is called a new feature called scent filterbanks, which we're trying to use in the context of Carnatic music. And we are also trying to do kind of complement the work that Ajay has been doing. We're looking at mridangam stroke transcription. So basically what we're saying is, if I have a tani avartanam, can I transcribe the strokes of the tani avartanam? That's our objective. And finally we are also looking at, we find that there are a lot of conventional pitch extraction algorithms, some of them very good, but at the same time many of them do fall short or they're very expensive in terms of computation. We've also done some work on this. What I will do is about tonic and mridangam stroke transcription, I will give some details about the work, primarily because the two researchers are not here. The rest of them, I'll say who will talk about it. So those of you, when somebody was asking me what is sur outside and various things, so going back to Indian classical music, just a small review again. Very rich repertoires, many traditions, many genres. It's primarily an oral tradition, basically what we it's primarily oral tradition, being that you, a teacher teaches the students one-on-one more often than not. There are no written, there's no really hardly any annotation that's there, and they're very well established teaching and learning practices. But what we find is there's hardly any archived music which is studied scientifically, and primarily because it's Indian music, as we all know, is pretty rich in manodharma. You've heard about this. Basically improvisation, and it's kind of difficult to analyze and represent using ideas from Western music. So what is our primary objective? Why are we interested in doing something like this? We would like to enhance the experience through music information retrieval. As already we said, morning you saw the Dunia browser, can we do something more? Can I say which school do these musicians belong from the audio? That's what we're looking at. You got that from the metadata, but is it possible? These are things that we would like to look at. Okay. For those of you who do not know what this is, structure of a Carnatic music concert, it's primarily a listener's perspective. A concert is made up of a sequence of items. Items correspond to different forms, and each form has a specific characteristic. There are people who also try to identify the different forms. IIT Bangalore has been doing quite a lot of work on this, and she could not come here. And rāgas or melodies are seldom repeated except in thematic concerts. And one or more pieces in a concert are generally taken up for elaboration. A kriti, for example, where you have a alaapana, which consists of a composition, a pallavi, anupallavi, charanam, niraval, which is again improvisation, swaraprastara, and possibly a solo percussion. And a ragam tanam pallavi, which only has an alaapana, a tanam, a composition which is only a pallavi, swaraprastara, and solo percussion possibly. And the pallavi is rendered at different speeds with, I don't know whether to call it niraval, but to find any better name, I call it niraval. The swaraprastara may include multiple melodies or multiple ragas, and generally in the RTP you will find that the rhythmic cycles that are chosen are quite complex. Example, you will have Ai Talam Tisra Nadai, there is a Jati, there is a Nadai, and there is a Kalai, and so on and so forth. There are other types, Padam, Javalis, Viruttams, and then finally a closure. Varnam, for example, can be something that a concert might start with. The main item and the RTP are generally, the main kriti, for example, are generally the hallmarks of a concert. You'll find that more often than not, most musicians choose for the main item one of the songs of the Trinity, and an RTP is just the pallavi, and many people compose their own for that matter. Okay. The primary aspects of Indian classical music, we've been talking about this. Tonic, for those of you wondering what tonic is the bass sur or the shruti chosen by a musician to render the music. And each musician has his or her own tonic. Bombay Jayashree has 220 Hertz, TM Krishna has 140 Hertz, MDR is 110 Hertz. And raga or melody, for example, are sung relative to the tonic. And the raga is completely made up of gamakas, the inflection of the notes. And gamakas are generally associated with the phrases of the raga. Expression of an alaapana is done through the relevant phrases. Phrases can be rendered in different tempos. Phrases are claimed to be sort of derived from many of the sung compositions. Especially the trinity are used quite a lot by up and coming musicians. Talas, it has a very strong tradition of rhythm. I already said kalai, nadai, jati, and so on. And mridangam stroke analysis, one of the things that we are looking at is in Carnatic music concert, you have a solo performance mandatorily in every concert. So can we segment the thani and can we transcribe this, because that is where the solo percussionist actually shows his expertise or creativity for that matter. And there are other aspects that we have looked at. The concert is more like a conversation between the artist and the audience. I should have put this in quotes because it's an article that was written by Murthy some time back. The appreciation by the audience is more a here and a now. What we mean is, as soon as you hear something beautiful, you immediately clap. Okay? So and a concert is replete with applauses. One of the tasks that we've also undertaken is, we have Sangeeta Priya with large number of recordings with applauses all along. Can we segment these and archive them in terms of pieces or items? Other aspect, for example, since motivic analysis is crucially dependent on pitch, and most algorithms sort of fall short. I mean, it does very well and suddenly you find it's giving you 0 pitch. We're also looking at new algorithms for pitch based on the phase, because we find that most of them are spectrum based estimations. Okay. So we already talked about this. This is chosen by the musician performer as the reference. The swarasa in the middle octave is the octave range is the tonic. And the drone is played, for example, you have the tambura or a tanpura which plays in the background, and that establishes the tonic. And all accompanying instruments in Carnatic music are tuned to the same tonic, and melodies are divided relative to this. This is just to give an idea for those of you who don't know what this is, because somebody asked me some time back. Here is Vignesh singing. This is in tonic 1, and the same thing sung in tonic 2. All of them are the same set of notes, but just that it's defined relative to a different tonic. So basically you notice that there is a transposition or a linear shift in the frequency scale here, and in the sense scale for that matter. The frequency scale is not necessarily linear. So if you want to do any kind of analysis, we need to normalize with respect to tonic. So what we did was the following. We did two different, we looked at melodic characteristics of the music, and we also looked at the tuning of the drone. This we have already presented last time at Istanbul, but just for completeness, I'm just giving you this over here. This is a pitch histogram of a Carnatic music concert. This is a pitch histogram of a Hindustani concert, piece, whatever. Notice that the notes are relatively less inflected in the Hindustani music compared to Carnatic music. The red stem corresponds to the tonic, and the objective is to find it. Clearly, it's not the tallest peak. What we essentially did was we found that we could use things like, there are less inflected notes, the sa, pa, sa, for example, and we simply use some kind of we get the pitch histogram, then we use what is called group delay processing to determine the tonic, which we've already talked about. This is something which is kind of recent, about a year old now, and determining the tuning of the drone using to identify tonic, this is something which we've been very successful with. Here is let me play this. So this is the, what we have find is that, oh boy, okay. This is one example of Hindustani music, and I think this is an example. How do I start? So basically what we hear in the background is the drone, and what we have done is we have taken this entire concert or song and we just excise the segments corresponding to the drone, similar to what has been done at UPF for that matter. So if you notice here, there are nice pitch tracks here, in between there looks like sort of silence regions, but actually it corresponds to the drone. Basically, I think just like speech, for example, when a musician is rendering music, there are these intonation groups which you can identify, and you can just excise these. And then what we did was we did what is called, we use simply energy as a criterion. We used a whole host of low-level descriptors, but we found energy was quite enough, and a simple threshold on the energy was able to excise these segments. And it's not very critical. We need about 1.5 minutes of the data, and that's all that we require. Then what we did was we put it through, we picked up these drone segments, and we employed what is called non-negative matrix factorization, where we used a dictionary, for example, and we said in the dictionary, pick up one basis function. And it picks up one basis function, which is a spectrum, and once the spectrum is available, I simply estimate pitch and we know the tonic. Okay? This is exactly what we did. So this is based on drone. So the performance, the details are available in the various papers that we have published. It's about when you don't have the drone in the background. In the first example, for example, we find that we can get about 90% on 1.5 minutes of data. This is for Carnatic music. Whereas the drone being present in the background, Hindustani, Carnatic, we get about 98% recognition of the drone. It's extremely fast. We have ported it to an Android-based system, but it's not at the stage where we can demonstrate right now what it can do. Okay? And the next thing that I want to talk about is gamakas in Carnatic music. We know what is an arohana, and every raga, for example, will tell you there's a sequence of notes in ascending order, generally starts and ends with a tonic sa. There's an arohana, sequence of notes in descending order, starts from the tonic upper sa for that matter, and comes down to the lower sa. It's replete with gamakas. Although there are specific placeholders, notes can meander quite significantly about the placeholder. This has been told time and again. The note uttered and the note sung need not have a one-to-one correspondence. So what we started out with initially was we said, we wanted to know some kind of can we define the, gamaka by kind of a grammar. We went back to Subrahma Dikshitar's book on Dashavida Gamaka, and he said there are a finite number of meandering patterns, and we thought that the gamakas would be stitched together or gamakas overlaid along with brikas, and we said, and then what we found was, we got Vignesh to help us do this, and this is the kampita. So a kampita is one which you see the rolling of the gamaka, and then there were others like a nokku for them, and there are a large number of them. What is this? This is what you get. Okay, jaru and, okay, it's called a jaru because the gliding is there. The gliding gamaka for that matter is what he said. Then what we found was, it was interesting that then we asked Vignesh to go back and sing this for us, and he sang it with all these gamakas, todi. This is glide and jaru. Kampitam and jaru. So our objective was, we thought, once we have this, so there is a grammar, and all that we have to do is take this alap and then quantify it in terms of these units and stitch them together, and then we have a representation for the melody. But then interestingly, what happened was we found this. We found that we took an alap. Vignesh is the one who labeled this for us. the black marking there, the blue marking there corresponds to a gamaka according to Dasavida gamaka. So the purport of this is we found that long alap, in that there are hardly any of the grammar of the gamaka as defined in this Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, where enunciated by this very famous artist K.V. Narayan Swami for that matter, it's not really there. So then we realized that this is not the way to go, and then at that point we said, okay, now what do we do? I mean, with myself and Vignesh sitting together, decided that what we need to do perhaps is, maybe they are not sticking to a grammar of the gamaka, so do there, but at the same time when you're sitting in the audience, the people who have hardly heard, who have hardly been trained in music, say, oh, this is this raga and this is that raga. So are there typical time frequency motifs for a particular raga? That is where we started out, and we started out with a set of time frequency representations of the pitch. So basically what we need is, we need something which will map from the raga to the language as defined by musicians. We have still not done anything there. So what we did right now was, we asked Vignesh to label for us a set of motifs, and we said once these motifs are labeled, because every raga has a special motif that the audience is able, not one single motif, there can be many such motifs. I think for Kambudi you got some 30 motifs or something like that, Bhairavi 4 motifs, which are typical of the particular raga. So we said, can you mark these for us in various alapanas, and we will use that in a machine learning framework. So that's all that we have done, and this is just to illustrate 2 pitch histograms where you find that this is Shankaravarnam and Kalyani, which essentially have difference in only one note, but the pitch histograms are very different. So I think already we have told us that you cannot do any identity of raga based on pitch histograms. The phraseology is very important. So significant band of frequencies around every peak is also frequent, only one note, and basically the pitch contour is seamless and continuous. So why is it a difficult task? This is the difficulty, as already I think IIT Bombay group also pointed out to you. So you find that, here for example, unlike the Mukuda, which is kind of timed, here it's not even timed in the sense that you have, this is the same motif occurring, this is a long alapana over here, and you find that the motif is occurring here, the motif is occurring here, and here, and here, and so on. All the red marks on the top thing correspond to the motif. And the idea is, can we detect these motifs? So then we first started out with, can we automatically find these motifs? But we did not succeed at all. We said, give all the alaps and let it pick up what is common to all of them. It's not very successful, primarily because I think a lot of the way the musician approaches a particular note can depend on the school also, in spite of the fact there is a particular phraseology that is there. So then what we did was, we did use the DTW and other techniques, and what we have kind of been reasonably successful is, we do find that there is some kind of a laya in the alap, in the sense that there is just like we speak, for example, they say there's meter in speech, there's meter in music, so we can kind of detect these places where there's likely to be a motif. Basically we are simply using voice activity detection now, we've not done anything better than that, and this in tandem with what is called a rough longest common subsequence algorithm, and I will not take it away from Shrey. Shrey has a lot of discussions on this, where he will discuss the algorithm that we have developed for detecting motifs. Okay. The next thing that we have looked at is, one of the biggest problems that we faced with looking at pitch alone was, we were feeling that pitch is a single feature, and you make one mistake in that feature and then your whole motif recognition, everything is gone. So we said, what is tonic shift? Tonic shift causes a linear shift in the sense scale. Then one of the things that we thought was, can we do a different type of a filter bank? Those of you who come from the speech community know about Mel frequency, capsular coefficients and things like that. So we said, what we will do is, even obviously the cochlear can be modeled by a bank of constant Q filters. So we said, let's place these constant Q filters linear on the sense scale after tonic normalization. Okay. So once you do that, you have the same structure for every musician. So what we do is, we place these filters uniformly on the sense scale. We call this the sense filter banks, and this is to give the same, this is what Kambudi, M3, whatever, Nida Pada, right? Or Sari Nida Pada. This is And notice that this is 5 different musicians singing the same motif. I think this is DKP, this is KVN, and one is MS, one is Sanjay, and this is TM Krishna. Okay, as usual. Okay, so this is the, so if you look at it, so, and what these are basically what we call sent filterbank grams, or whatever you like to call them. So we have just sent filterbank energies were computed, and it is interesting that we can see these patterns repeatedly at once every octave for that matter. And we have taken something like 6 or 7 octaves because we were told to use 7 octaves in the frequency range. So we've done that. This is only one, I think this is about 2 octaves where we see these motifs. This is the motif here, and this gets repeated, again gets repeated, and keeps getting repeated. This is what we have looked at, and again this is the algorithm for doing this, and I don't want to take this, this work. To give you an idea, those of you familiar with constant Q transform filters, which have already been used in the Western music context, the difference is that the same as CQT, it's just that sent filter banks, CQT are the same as sent filter banks with a tonic of 2. That's the fundamental difference. Log 2 spacing is what we're doing over here. And I don't want to, Sarla has got a lot of results on this. We've used this in applications like to segmentation, motif recognition, stroke recognition, and also archival. She will talk more about this particular work. And then the last piece of work, which I will also talk about. As I said, we are trying to do work that is complementary to what Ajay is doing. Ajay is looking at the location of the sum. What we're trying to do is we're trying to see, can we recognize the strokes. This was an experiment which we did. C.V. Raman has done this long time back with sand figures, and we said all these strokes were played extremely carefully. The number of strokes is 8. According to Raman, there are 5 different modes or resonances or 5 basis vectors. We once again used non-negative matrix factorization to estimate these. And interestingly, we found these are the 4 modes that you see here. These are the 5 modes which we dictionary elements, but we find that only 4 modes are active. This gives you the activation of each one of them. And actually what we did was we simply took a sum of all these activations, and that itself was used to segment. We didn't have to do anything more than that. We didn't use spectral flux or anything like that. And then we trained what is called hidden Markov models using these activations. So it was basically a 3-state, onset, attack, and decay, nothing more than that. And we tested on untranscribed data. So basically what you do is you look at the activations, sum the activations, and then the peak, for example, will tell you that it is it's a segment boundary. And we have a pretty good accuracy on this, about 87 to 89% was obtained in a controlled experiment. Then we said now we should do away from the controlled experiment. And we also used CQT filters and sent filter banks along with HMM, which are kind of unpublished, but pretty good results. And Sarla, well, Akshay was supposed to be here, but he's not here right now, but he will also talk about this. She will talk about this. And most importantly, as far as the work is concerned, we are right now having Dr. Umayyapuram Shivaraman, who's working with us. We thought we would have some results today, but we, as of yet, don't have this as yet. He is playing tanis for us, transcribing the tanis, and we are trying to train a hidden Markov model. The problem is the transcription has some errors. We're trying to correct it right now, and in an embedded estimation framework to detect this. What is interesting is it seems to be, and we have not done anything, because since it's a single musician, we have simply used MFCC based features to do this, and we also have a number of upcoming artists trying to transcribe it. And then finally, about the pitch extraction algorithm, we've used a group delay based approach to pitch extraction. A simple, once you flatten the magnitude spectrum, the source is what shows up as a sinusoid. And then we have done a lot of work earlier on modified group delay functions for estimation of sinusoids. And what is interesting is here we have shown only 3 cycles, but this keeps on repeating. This is not frequency here, this should be time. Rajiv, I asked you to change the slide for me anyway. At multiples of the pitch period, this is time over here, you keep seeing this at, it keeps on dipping. So what he has done is he's tried to use a dynamic programming based approach to find the fundamental T0, and he will show you some reasonable results on Carnatic music too. So this is essentially the work, and I'll get Shrey, Sarla, and Rajiv will talk about it. So in conclusion, we're trying to look at different aspects of Carnatic music. Tonic is one which we've kind of solved, I think, as Javier said. Motive discovery, we're still a very, very long way to go. And first we started out with shorter motifs, now we've taken longer motifs. What we did was for longer motifs, there is a rāga test that Ramavarma has put up on YouTube. Then of course rasikas.org, I found that a large number of people have taken the test and people have got 62 out of 73, 63 out of 72 right. So we said these must be good motifs, and he's given about 3 to 15-second motifs. So we've taken those motifs now, and one interesting thing is the false alarms have come down quite tremendously when we look at this particular work, which Shrey will talk about. And transcriptional rhythm is something that we, segmentation of recordings of Carnatic music, actually it's very interesting. Sarla will show you this, about 97 to 98% success we've had on this, where you have a continuous recording. And transcriptional rhythm is something that we will take up in a very big way. Can we even identify artists from the sequence of strokes from the grammar that is there? And I mean, I feel at least mridangam we can do something more. Motif discovery, we're still kind of lots of grays, we need to fix it. And one of the things that we're talking about is we feel that, you know, although we got this labeled by a musician, we feel that we can't depend on musicians for this. Carnatic music has a rich tradition of compositions. So could we take compositions, because most musicians do pick up the motifs from the compositions. One of the things that we're trying to say is, can we take one-liners of songs? In fact, you know, most people sitting in the audience will say, oh, it comes like this song, and more often than not, it's the first line of the song. So it's also known that Tyagaraja composed such that the first line of the song tells you it is not any of these ragas, but it is this raga. So it's believed that way. So one of the things that we thought was, should we simply take the first line of songs, get sung by various people, and look at the commonality between all of this, can we kind of mine and get motifs? This is something that we're looking at. Varnams we want to do because Vedavalli has written a lot about Varnams and Shruti, and she says it has everything. Raga, you want Swaraprastara, you want Tanam, you want Ragam, everything is there in the Varnam. She said, keeps advising all students to practice Varnam all the time. So that's something that we want to look at to see if there are motifs in the Varnam. So that's something that we are trying to attempt. And another thing that I'm kind of excited about is, again, going back to Vedavalli, she says there is laya in alaapana. So, and maybe it's very musician specific, maybe it will give us identity of musicians, not sure, but there's something that we would like to look at. So far we have been looking at collections, you know, our database has come primarily from our local collections. Hereafter we have to work with Music Brains, that's something that we have to, so we do, whatever we do with that. And this work which Rajiv is doing, we find that, you know, if you suppress all these tall peaks, the next peak actually corresponds to the next, you know, whether it's a violin or something like that. So multi-pitch tracking is something that's also on our anvil. And this is something, you know, Subramaniam was asking us. I think cognitive signal processing, I feel, and music, I somehow feel machine learning and signal processing must go in tandem for any kind of recognition. So I'll let the others take over.